Every year, 30 million cruise passengers dock at Caribbean ports expecting paradise. What they get instead depends entirely on which port they are standing in. Some of these stops deliver exactly what the brochure promised. Others are organized extraction machines designed to separate you from your money before you get back on the ship. We ranked 15 Caribbean cruise ports from worst to best. Not on scenery, not on how good the pier looks from the water, on value, safety, healthcare access, and the honest experience of passengers who have been there and reported back. The worst port on this list will shock you. The best one will make you wish your cruise stopped there every single time. Let's start at the bottom. Worst number 7, Falmouth, Jamaica. Falmouth was purpose-built in 2011 at a cost of $45 million specifically to accommodate Oasis-class Royal Caribbean ships. From the gangway, it looks impressive. That impression does not survive the terminal gates. The streets immediately beyond the Falmouth Pier carry a vendor and taxi pressure that is among the most aggressive of any Caribbean cruise port. Informal drivers quote one price at the pier and introduce additional charges once you are committed to the ride. JTB complaint records document this pattern with more specificity than almost any other Jamaican port. The fix is specific and worth memorizing. Government-regulated Juda taxis display a red license plate marked PPV, Public Passenger Vehicle. No red PPV plate means no negotiation and no ride. For senior passengers, the medical situation here requires advanced planning. Falmouth Hospital on Rodney Street handles basic emergencies. Serious cardiac or trauma cases go to Cornwall Regional Hospital in Montego Bay, roughly 45 minutes west on the A1 highway. Knowing that transfer chain before you step off the gangway is not overcaution. It is basic preparation for any passenger managing a pre-existing condition. The next port carries a similar vendor pressure problem and adds a specific crime pattern that targets cruise passengers so precisely it almost feels engineered. Worst number 6, Ocho, Rios, Jamaica. The Ocho Rios cruise pier handles an estimated 1.2 million passenger arrivals annually, according to the Port Authority of Jamaica. That volume, concentrated into a few hours per ship call, creates the perfect conditions for opportunistic crime. Pickpocketing and bag snatching around the island village craft market are among the most consistently reported tourist crimes in Jamaica. The setup is almost architectural in its efficiency. Thousands of passengers with cameras, cash, and phones operating under a hard departure deadline in an unfamiliar environment. Aggressive vendor behavior near the craft market has been documented in formal JTB complaints at a rate that prompted the board to issue guidance to cruise operators in 2022. That guidance recommended pre-booked transport for all excursions rather than pier-side negotiation. For senior passengers, St. Anne's Bay Hospital sits approximately 12 kilometers west of the pier. A medical incident during peak pedestrian traffic around ship arrival means slow ground transport to a facility that is not a specialist center. Serious emergencies require further transfer to Kingston. The fix here is straightforward. Ask any driver or guide 5 words before you agree to anything. Are you JTB registered? Anyone who hesitates is not. What comes next is a port that looks far more polished than either of these Jamaican stops and hides its problems behind a finish that most passengers never think to look beneath. Worst number 5, Nassau, Bahamas. Nassau's port area is one of the most aggressively commercialized tourist zones in the entire Caribbean. The moment passengers step ashore, the extraction begins. A local beer that costs $2 in a Nassau neighborhood restaurant runs $15 in the tourist corridor. The taxi situation deserves its own warning. Taxis here are unmetered and unregulated. Documented cases exist of drivers demanding hundreds of dollars from passengers, refusing to stop, or threatening behavior when challenged on pricing. The advice from every experienced Nassau traveler is consistent. Negotiate and lock in the price before you get in. Never accept a ride from an unmarked private car. The area south of downtown Nassau, known as Over the Hill, is controlled by gang activity and is completely off limits for any tourist. No exceptions. For senior passengers, Doctors Hospital on Shirley Street and Princess Margaret Hospital provide emergency care in Nassau. Princess Margaret is the public facility. Doctors Hospital is private and recommended for international travelers requiring urgent treatment. The gap between what Nassau charges and what it delivers is one of the widest on this list. The next port takes that same gap and adds a security dimension that makes Nassau's problems look manageable by comparison. Worst number 4, Roatan, Honduras. Roatan's underwater world is genuinely extraordinary. The Mesoamerican barrier reef surrounding the island is the second largest coral reef system on the planet, and the diving here is world-class by any honest assessment. The problem is everything above the waterline. Honduras carries a U.S. State Department Level 3 Reconsider Travel designation, and Roatan, while meaningfully safer than mainland Honduras, is not exempt from that context. The West End and West Bay beach areas function reasonably well for organized guided tourism. Independent movement outside those zones carries risk levels that the cruise ship shore excursion desk exists specifically to help you avoid. Taxi pricing operates on a tourist rate system that is inconsistently applied and frequently challenged. Passengers who negotiate excursions independently on the pier, rather than through vetted operators, consistently report higher prices, lower quality, and occasional safety concerns than those who book through the ship. For senior passengers, Roatan's medical infrastructure is genuinely limited. The Cornerstone Hospital in Cox and Hole provides basic emergency care. Serious medical events require air evacuation to San Pedro Sula or Tegucigalpa, both of which carry their own significant security concerns. Travel insurance with medical evacuation coverage is not optional here. It is a requirement that any responsible travel advisor should make explicit before embarkation. The next port has no issue with mainland political risk. Its problem is something more quietly damaging, and it involves the water you are swimming in. Worst number 3, Cozumel, Mexico. On days when 4 or 5 large cruise ships dock simultaneously, and this happens regularly, San Miguel de Cozumel becomes something close to a human traffic jam. Thousands of passengers pour off ships with a few hours to spend money, and the entire commercial zone has been built around extracting as much of it as possible in the shortest time. Vendors outside the terminal are aggressive. Tour sellers pitch loudly from every doorway. Prices inside the port shopping zone are marked in US dollars at rates that assume every visitor just walked off a gangway and has no sense of local value. Because most of them just did. The scooter rental industry here carries a specific reputation for questionable practices. Renters are frequently charged for pre-existing damage that was never documented at pickup. Operators can be persistent in their demands in ways that turn a pleasant shore day into a financial dispute. Cozumel's coral reef is genuinely one of the finest in the world, and serious divers should rank this port significantly higher than its position here. But for the casual passenger wanting a relaxed, authentic Caribbean experience, the commercial saturation is relentless. For senior passengers, the Centro Médico de Cozumel on Cali 1 Sur provides private emergency care. Serious cases require the ferry crossing to Playa del Carmen and ground transport to Cancun. That crossing adds time to an already complicated emergency response chain. The next port carries fewer crowds than Cozumel, but concentrates its problems into a single, compressed geography that makes the Cozumel pier feel spacious by comparison. Worst number 2, Belize City. Belize City has a structural problem that no amount of pier investment resolves. Ships anchor offshore and tender passengers to the city because the harbor is too shallow for large vessels to dock directly. That tendering process immediately creates time pressure on a port call that is already short. The U.S. State Department maintains a Level 2 advisory for Belize with specific language about Belize City, where crime rates are described as significantly higher than in tourist destinations. Southside neighborhoods carry gang activity levels that local police statistics place among the highest in the Caribbean basin per capita. The practical result is a cruise port, where the experienced advice is to book excursions that take you away from the city immediately and return you to the tender dock without independent exploration of the surrounding streets. Alton Ha, the Belize Zoo, the Belize Barrier Reef, and the Mayan ruins at Lamanai are all legitimately excellent excursion destinations accessible from this port. None of them involve spending time in Belize City itself. For senior passengers, Carl Huesner Memorial Hospital is the primary public facility in Belize City. It operates under resource constraints that make it inadequate for serious cardiac or trauma emergencies. Serious medical events typically require air evacuation to Merida, Mexico, or Houston, Texas. That evacuation chain requires comprehensive travel insurance coverage that senior passengers should confirm before the cruise departs, not during a medical event offshore. One port remains on the worst half of this list, and it is the entry that will generate the most debate, because it is consistently rated among the most popular cruise stops in the entire Caribbean. Worst number 1, St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. St. Thomas records roughly 35 homicides per 100,000 residents annually. That rate places it higher than many cities in Mexico and far above the U.S. mainland average. Yet, because it flies the American flag and accepts U.S. dollars, passengers consistently arrive assuming it carries the safety profile of Miami or Tampa. It does not. Charlotte-Amalie, the capital, becomes genuinely dangerous after dark. Locals are frank about which areas to avoid, and the candor of that advice is itself a signal about how real the risk is. The infrastructure adds its own complications. There are no sidewalks on most roads. Traffic moves on the left side despite American-style left-hand drive vehicles, which disorients rental car drivers immediately. Taxis operate on a per-person rate from an official government price list, which sounds orderly until a family of 4 realizes a short ride costs a surprising sum very quickly. For senior passengers, Roy Lester Schneider Hospital on the waterfront in Charlotte-Amalie provides emergency care. It is the primary public facility, but it is not a comprehensive specialist center. Complex cardiac and neurological cases require medical evacuation to Puerto Rico or the U.S. mainland. The duty-free shopping that St. Thomas markets aggressively delivers mediocre value with service that experienced Caribbean travelers consistently describe as unwelcoming. That combination, genuine security risk, infrastructure confusion, and overrated shopping makes St. Thomas the worst overall value proposition of any port on this list. That is the worst 7. Every port on that half of this list had something in common: the gap between what the marketing promised and what the gangway delivered. What follows is completely different. These ports have earned their reputations honestly, and some of them will make you reorganize your entire cruise preference around a single afternoon ashore. The best port on this list delivers an experience that no shore excursion budget can fully prepare you for. We start at number 8 best. Best number 8, Castries, St. Lucia. St. Lucia's problems, documented in many Caribbean rankings, are real, but they are concentrated outside the areas that well-organized cruise passengers actually visit. Castries itself is a functional, genuinely Caribbean port town, with an atmosphere that the more commercialized stops on this list have completely lost. The Castries market on Jeremy Street is one of the finest produce and craft markets in the Eastern Caribbean. Vendors here are selling to a local economy as well as to tourists, which keeps the pressure manageable and the prices honest. A full tray of local fruits, spices, and hot sauces cost between $5 and $15 US. Sulphur Springs, the world's only drive-in volcano, sits 40 minutes south of Castries and costs under $10 to enter. The mud baths adjacent to it are included in that price. Marigot Bay, one of the most beautiful natural harbors in the Caribbean, is a 40-minute drive from the pier and costs nothing beyond transport to reach. For senior passengers, Victoria Hospital provides public emergency care in Castries. Tapian Hospital on Tapian Road is the private facility recommended for international travelers requiring urgent treatment. The next port takes St. Lucia's natural beauty and adds a food culture that makes it one of the finest eating stops in the entire Caribbean. Best number 7, Bridgetown, Barbados. Barbadians, Bajans, as residents call themselves, have a reputation for warmth and courtesy that is not manufactured for tourism. They are genuinely proud of their island and genuinely interested in visitors experiencing it properly. That distinction is felt within minutes of stepping ashore at the Bridgetown Cruise Terminal. The Flying Fish Cutter, a fried flying fish sandwich on salt bread, is the national street food and costs under $3 US at any of the stalls within walking distance of the terminal. It is one of the finest value food experiences available at any Caribbean cruise port. Harrison's Cave, a crystallized limestone cavern with underground streams and waterfalls, runs approximately $25 US for a tram tour through its chambers. The West Coast beaches around Holetown and Mullins Bay, accessible by route taxi for under $5, offer sheltered, calm, genuinely beautiful swimming. For senior passengers, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Bridgetown provides public emergency care, and the Bayview Hospital on St. Paul's Avenue provides private emergency care at an international standard. Barbados has some of the best medical infrastructure in the Eastern Caribbean, which makes it one of the strongest overall ports on this list for senior travelers with health considerations. The next port is smaller than Bridgetown, less known, and somehow delivers a more concentrated experience of what the Caribbean actually is beneath the tourism layer. Best number 6, Gustavia, St. Barthélemy. St. Barts charges more than almost anywhere else in the Caribbean. That is not a secret, and it is not an accident. What it delivers in return is a port experience where the commercial aggression, the vendor pressure, the fake tour operators, and the tax taxi fraud that characterize the worst ports on this list are entirely absent. Gustavia is a functioning French town. The harbor is lined with super yachts, and the streets behind it carry French pharmacies, French bakeries, and wine shops stocked with bottles that cost less here than in Paris due to duty-free status. A croissant from a Gustavia boulangerie costs $2. A glass of Burgundy at a harbor bar costs $12. Shell Beach, a 5-minute walk from the tender dock, is covered in white shells rather than sand and offers genuinely clear water with zero vendor pressure and zero admission fee. For senior passengers, the Hôpital de Bruyne on Les Barrières Road provides emergency care at a French public hospital standard, which is among the highest available at any cruise port in the region. The cost of everything else in St. Barts is high. The cost of medical care in a genuine French public facility is not. The next port delivers St. Bart's absence of pressure at a fraction of the price, in a setting that most Caribbean veterans describe as one of the most beautiful they have ever seen. Best number 5. Philipsburg, St. Martin. St. Martin's Dutch side carries a complex history that includes severe Hurricane Irma damage in 2017 and an uneven rebuilding process that has left some areas fully restored and others still visibly affected. But Philipsburg, the main port town, has recovered its essential character. The famous Maho Beach, where commercial jets pass directly overhead at an altitude of less than 10 meters on final approach to Princess Juliana Airport, is free to visit 10 minutes from the pier and delivers an experience that is genuinely unlike anything else available at a Caribbean cruise port. Great Bay Beach, directly adjacent to the pier, is one of the most swimmable, least commercialized town beaches accessible without transport from any cruise terminal in the region. The French side of the island, accessible by a 20-minute taxi ride across the open border, contains Grand Case, a single beachfront street of genuine Creole French restaurants where a full seafood lunch costs between $20 and $40 at a standard that rivals proper French coastal towns. That meal, combined with the Maho Beach experience and a swim at Great Bay, constitutes one of the finest free and low-cost shore day itineraries available anywhere in the Caribbean. For senior passengers, the St. Martin Medical Center in Cahill provides emergency and specialist care at a standard that reflects decades of Dutch Caribbean healthcare investment. The next port has been delivering one of the finest shore day experiences in the Caribbean for decades, with almost no recognition from the mainstream cruise marketing machine. Best number 4. Willemstad, Curacao. Willemstad stops you cold the first time you see it from the water. Rows of Dutch colonial buildings painted in citrus yellow, coral pink, and ocean turquoise line both sides of a deep harbor connected by a floating pedestrian bridge that swings open to let ships through several times a day. It is one of the most visually arresting port arrivals in the entire Caribbean, and the city behind that harbor entrance earns the impression it creates. Curacao sits below the hurricane belt, which means the same predictable weather that makes Aruba reliable applies here with considerably more cultural depth. The island was a trading crossroads for centuries, and the result is a culture drawing from African, Dutch, Portuguese, and dozens of other traditions expressed in Papiamentu, a local language that sounds like no other language on Earth. The tugboat wreck off the western shore lies in just 15 feet of water and is fully accessible by snorkel. It is considered one of the finest accessible wreck dives in the Caribbean and costs nothing beyond transport to the entry point. Accommodation costs are meaningfully lower than neighboring Aruba for comparable properties. A full dinner of traditional keshi yena, the national dish of spiced meat baked inside a cheese wheel, costs between $12 and $25 at a proper Willemstad restaurant. For senior passengers, the Curacao Medical Center on Roosevelt Weg provides emergency and specialist care at a Dutch Caribbean standard that competes with anything available in the region outside Barbados. The next port has none of Curaçao's urban complexity and compensates with a natural environment so pristine that the island's entire tourism economy is built around protecting it. Best number 3. Kralendijk, Bonaire. Every other port on this list requires a boat to reach its best snorkeling and diving. On Bonaire, you park on the side of the road, walk 30 feet, and enter water directly above a healthy coral reef. That single fact sets Bonaire apart from virtually every other dive destination in the world. Bonaire established marine park protections decades before its neighbors, and the result is an underwater environment of astonishing health and diversity. Sea turtles nest on the beach. Eagle rays glide through coral canyons. Seahorses anchor to sea fans in water shallow enough to stand in. The Southern Loop Drive takes passengers past pyramids of white salt, towering above pink evaporation ponds, where wild flamingos wade in the late afternoon light. That drive costs nothing beyond a rental car or a scooter that runs under $30 for the day. Getting around by golf cart is both practical and genuinely enjoyable for passengers who find scooters uncomfortable. Crime on Bonaire is negligible. The Dutch Caribbean infrastructure provides reliable basics without the price extremes of St. Barts. For senior passengers, the San Francisco Hospital on Caia sur Bartola provides emergency care. The island's size and the quality of its marine environment mean that a shore day here requires almost no planning to be extraordinary. Simply enter the water and the reef does the rest. The next port gives you Bonaire's safety profile and adds a colonial city so beautiful it earned a UNESCO World Heritage designation. Best number 2. Charlotte Amalie, St. John via ferry. This entry requires a clarification immediately. Charlotte Amalie on St. Thomas appeared in the worst half of this list for legitimate reasons. But Charlotte Amalie is also the departure point for a 20-minute ferry to Cruz Bay on St. John, and that ferry changes everything. More than 60% of St. John is a protected U.S. national park. No high-rise hotels, no commercial development blighting the hillsides, no jet ski concessions on the beach. What the National Park Service has preserved on St. John is the Caribbean as it existed before the tourism industry arrived, accessible under American safety standards with American emergency services. Trunk Bay has an underwater snorkeling trail marked with plaques identifying coral species. On a calm morning, sea turtles swim alongside snorkelers without concern. The hiking trails through the park connect pristine beaches reachable only on foot, which means they remain nearly empty even during peak season. The ferry from the Charlotte Amalie waterfront costs approximately $13 each way. Water taxi services run between $18 and $25 each way and offer more flexible scheduling. For senior passengers, the Myra Keating Smith Community Health Center in Cruz Bay provides basic emergency care. Serious cases require transport back to Roy Lester Schneider Hospital on St. Thomas. That return journey is a planning variable worth knowing before departure. But the combination of American safety infrastructure, national park protection, and the specific beauty of St. John's beaches makes this the second finest shore day experience available at any port on this list. One port remains, and it earns the top position by doing something that almost no other Caribbean cruise port manages. It delivers an experience that has nothing to do with shopping, vendor pressure, beach clubs, or organized excursions. Best number 1, Gustavia to Colombia Beach, St. Barthélemy Saint. Barts appeared earlier on the best half of this list for its port town experience. It earns the top position for something the port entry did not fully describe. Colombia Beach on St. Bart's northwestern tip is accessible only by boat or by a 45-minute hiking trail descending from the road above. There is no road access to the beach itself. There is no bar, no vendor, no lounge chair rental, no jet ski operation. There is a crescent of white sand, completely sheltered water, a reef accessible by snorkel from the shore, and whatever silence exists in a Caribbean that has been almost entirely stripped of it by tourism infrastructure. A water taxi from Gustavia Harbor to Colombia costs approximately $30 per person return. The hike from the road above costs nothing except the effort. The beach itself charges nothing. Sea turtles feed in the shallow reef water off the left end of the bay. Rays rest in the sandy bottom in the center. The snorkeling here, in water so clear that visibility exceeds 20 meters on a calm day, is available to anyone who can wade in from the shore. No certification, no boat, no guided tour required. For senior passengers, the accessibility consideration is real. The water taxi option eliminates the hiking requirement entirely. The beach entry is shallow and gradual. The Hôpital de Bruyne, referenced earlier, remains the emergency care option for any medical event on the island. The finest Caribbean cruise port experience is not the most famous. It is not the most marketed. It does not have the largest pier or the most aggressive shore excursion desk. It is a beach that takes $30 to reach, charges nothing to use, and delivers the Caribbean that the brochure has been promising since the day you booked. Colombia Beach from Gustavia is that experience, and no other port on this list comes close to matching what a single afternoon there can feel like. If this list changed even one port on your next cruise itinerary, drop it in the comments right now. We read every single comment and we answer as many as we can. For more cruise and destination rankings covering the Mediterranean, Alaska, and the South Pacific with the same level of detail on safety, value, and real costs, click the next video on the left. We will see you there.